All right, week 0 of the 2019 college football season is officially in the books now. We do this video every Sunday night. It's time for the updated Uncle Lou Top 10 poll. Hey, good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yep, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today, so thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also, and in addition to that as well, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Some of the videos I make are watchable, I promise. If this one's not, skip back and find a different one. Give this video a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. It doesn't cost you anything or take you any time at all, but it's a huge help to me. Hit the thumbs up! All right, top 10 polls. Like I mentioned, I do this every Sunday night during the season. I update my top 10 poll. I don't do a top 25. It's just pointless, and it would take me way too long. And if you've ever seen any of my top 10 videos, then you would understand why. Now, the good news is this one isn't going to be nearly as long as most of my top 10 videos are. Usually the top 10 videos are 20 to 25 minutes long because I try to explain why I'm ranking teams where I'm ranking them or why I'm moving teams around like I am. In this particular case, there's not a whole lot to talk about because we only had 2 games this past weekend, so only 4 teams played, and only one of those 4 teams was even in my top 10 poll. Before I get to any of that, though, the AP and the coaches obviously released their preseason polls a couple of weeks ago. I actually did 3 preseason polls this offseason. I did one after signing day, one after the spring game, and then I did my final preseason poll. I think it was the last week of June, maybe the first week of July. So I want to put all 3 of those up on the screen, not all 3 of mine, but I want to put the AP poll, the coaches poll, and my preseason poll and see how far off I might have been in July versus what the AP and the coaches came out with a couple of weeks ago. Okay, we'll start with the AP and the coaches poll. They're literally the same. There's no difference at all. Same 10 teams in the exact same order. Both the coaches and the AP had Texas at 10, Notre Dame at 9, number 8, Florida, number 7, Michigan, number 6, LSU, number 5, Ohio State, 4, OU, 3, Georgia, 2, Bama, and 1, Clemson. Now you look at my preseason poll that I came out with way back in, like I said, I think it was first week of July. Very similar. In fact, same 10 teams. Some of the teams are rearranged. I have Notre Dame 10 and Texas 9, so I have those flip-flop versus what the AP and the coaches had in the preseason, right? I also had Florida at 8, same as the coaches in the AP. I had Michigan all the way down at number 4, though, way higher than the other 2. But admittedly, I'm much higher on Michigan in general than almost anyone else is. I'm a glutton for punishment. It's the 3rd year in a row I've been doing this with Michigan. Eventually, I'm going to be right. When I am, I'm going to brag to you about how smart I am. I'm going to forget about all the times I was wrong about Michigan and just constantly harp on the times I was right. So because I have Michigan so high, that pretty much bumps the other teams down. So they're in about the same order as the other polls, just one spot down. So I've got LSU at 7, Ohio State at 6, OU at 5, Michigan, like we mentioned, at 4, and then UGA, Bama, and Clemson rounded out the top 3 in the Uncle Lou preseason poll. All right, let's see what's changed in the new poll. Here we go. All right, those of you who've been watching these polls for the last couple of years, you already know I punish and reward teams on a weekly basis. Anytime you make a top 10 list of anything, you're going to have a certain number of people that are just going to complain. No one's ever going to agree on a top 10 list of anything, and that's not what I expect. I don't expect everyone to tell me that I'm right. It's just my opinion. And like I said, I try to explain my reasoning behind why I do the things I do. But one of the things that I do is I reward teams each week for impressive wins, and I punish teams for non-impressive wins and obviously losses. For example, the number 1 complaint I hear about polls from everybody, whether we're talking AP, coaches, even a playoff poll that comes out in October, one of the main complaints I hear is they don't reward teams enough for something good, and they don't punish teams enough for something bad. Just because a team wins doesn't mean they should stay where they're at. I hear that all the time. I agree, and I move teams around in my poll, and a win doesn't necessarily guarantee that a team is going to stay in the spot they were in the week before. And I'll just give you a generic example here. But if you got a team that's ranked 4th or 5th and they play an unranked team and they struggle and win by 3, to me, that's not very good. Let's say you have a team that's ranked 15th and they play a team that's ranked 25th and they absolutely dominate them. To me, the 15th ranked team that dominated the 25th ranked team had a more impressive win than the 5th ranked team that struggled and won by 3 against an unranked team. In that scenario, I would be likely to move the 15 team up a couple of spots. No, I don't do a top 15, but you get what I'm saying. And the number 5 team, I would be inclined to bump them down a spot or two. I've been doing that for a couple of years. I know not everyone is going to agree with what I do, but again, I just try to explain my reasoning. So I'm not even going to just forget the mystery and the suspense and all that. Yes, I am moving Florida out of my top 10 poll. It just wasn't an impressive win. It just wasn't. You struggled to beat a bad Miami team, an unranked Miami team. You can't all of a sudden today try to convince me and everyone else that Miami is really, really good when Florida fans themselves have spent the last 6 months telling anyone who will listen how bad Miami is. Is it possible Miami is better, a little bit better than most people think? Of course that's possible. It's also possible that Florida's not quite as good as some people think. That is also possible. You didn't look good. 52 yards rushing, 1.9 yards per carry. Outside of a couple of plays by Kadarius Toney, your offense was completely non-existent. Felipe Franks looked worse in that game than at any point last year. Really, he looked lost, dazed, and confused. Multiple turnovers, I think 2 interceptions and a fumble. He just looked really, really bad. The offense was just terrible. Now, your defense played good, 10 sacks against probably the worst offensive line you'll play all year. And Miami's got a good defense, so maybe give them some credit for Florida's offensive struggles. But again, Florida has spent 2 years telling us that Dan Mullen is an offensive genius and can work magic with quarterbacks, and they talk about Nick Fitzgerald and Dak Prescott, and Felipe Franks looked terrible. He just did. Nobody, not a soul outside of the Florida fan base has done anything today except say that Florida looks like they're overrated. Okay? Only Florida fans are trying to prop Miami up today and pretend that that was a good win that you had yesterday. It just wasn't. You're falling out of my top 10 this week. Now, the good news is we've only had the week 0. Listen, there's plenty of time for you to move back up in my poll and any other poll that you happen to see anywhere, right? All these teams ahead of you, most of them anyway, are going to catch some losses. Some of them pretty soon. If you look at the top 10 polls, you got Georgia and Notre Dame playing in a couple of weeks. They're in the top 10 in every single poll. You got Texas and LSU playing in week 2. They're in the top 10 in every single poll. So, Clemson plays Texas A&M. Anyway, I could go on and on listing possible losses for all these teams in the top 10. But the point is, some teams are going to lose. Some teams are going to win and look bad. And you have an ample opportunity to catch them at that point. You go out and dominate your next couple of opponents over the next 3 or 4 weeks. I'm sure you'll be right back in the Uncle Lou top 10. But in this poll, we can only go on what we know so far and what we've seen so far. And what we know and what we've seen is that Florida does not look like a top 10 team right now. That doesn't mean that can't change or won't change, but right now they don't. Florida is out. All right, so who replaces Florida in my top 10 poll? Well, to me, it came down to 3 possible choices. Washington, Oregon, Texas A&M. I'll start with Texas A&M. I just honestly don't think they're a top 10 team. I think maybe they're close. I think maybe they're top 15. I just don't think they're top 10. On top of that, their record is going to be not very good this year. Their schedule is brutal. They play Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Auburn, it's South Carolina. It's just a brutal schedule. They're going to be a much better team than what their schedule indicates. I don't think they're top 10, though. It was pretty easy for me to eliminate them. That left me with Washington and Oregon. If you've been watching my preview and prediction videos that I've done, then you know I'm pretty high on both Washington and Oregon and Utah out of the Pac-12. You also know that I picked Washington to win the Pac-12 North. Oregon's in the Pac-12 North too. So I obviously think Washington's at least a little bit better than Oregon, and I've picked Washington to actually win the entire Pac-12. So for that reason, until I'm proven wrong, I'm moving Washington up and putting them in my 10 spot. What does that mean for Texas and Notre Dame? Well, that means they each move up 1 spot. I had Florida at 8. They fell out. I moved the 8 and 9 team, or the 10 and 9 team up a spot. That seemed to make the most sense. No one else has played. I moved the 2 teams that were behind Florida up 1 spot. That was Notre Dame and Texas. So I've got now Washington at 10, right? Notre Dame at 9, Texas at 8. The rest of my top 10 polls stayed exactly the same. 7 through 1 did not change. So I'll run through it again real quick. But it's LSU at 7, Ohio State at 6, OU at 5, Michigan at 4, Georgia at 3, Bama at 2, Clemson at 1. So that's it. That's my official week 1 top 10 poll. Again, I'm not going to take a lot of time and explain why I have some of these other teams where I have them, because I did that in the July video and nothing has changed between then and now for any of these teams except Florida. I'll put the link up here somewhere if I can remember. you can click back and watch that preseason poll video I did in July, where I go into more detail about why I have the teams where I have them. If you still are curious about that. Week 0 in the books. College football season is here. I couldn't be more excited. I know I gave Florida a hard time this weekend. I don't think Florida is as bad as they looked yesterday. Okay, I don't. But they did look bad, and you know what we do here. If Georgia looks bad, I'm the first one to come on here and say it. And you guys run to this channel and tell me, when you play bad, you got to expect to get the same. Florida played bad. They'll get better, I'm sure. I hope anyway. They look really bad. I don't see how they can not get better. And I think Miami can still have a pretty good year too. Florida was the toughest game for Miami, I think, that they'll play all year. So anyway, Week 1 top 10 poll in the books. We'll do this every Sunday night around the same time. I'll have it uploaded about 8 o'clock. I do the Your Season Is Over video in the morning. Give you guys some time to digest that, recover from your emotional beating that I give you in that video, and then I'll upload this top 10 for you in the evening around 8 o'clock. Tomorrow's that Georgia versus Vandy video too. Come get you some.